I guess, like Sam Altman, his WorldCoin is meant to be that. It's meant to be, both a wallet and a, provider of biometric digital ID. And the United Nations, for example, has been beta testing that exact system for years on the most vulnerable people in the world, on refugees, through things like the Building Blocks program of the World Food Program, where refugees have to scan their eyeball and make a digital ID and have a digital wallet, and they can go in and get their rations, but only if they scan their eyeball. They have to pay with their face, otherwise they don't eat. They've been testing this on the most vulnerable people on the world, but it's a system that's intended for everybody.
Whitney Webb has raised concerns about the development of digital ID systems in the United States and United Kingdom, viewing them as part of a broader agenda pushed by elite groups. She sees WorldCoin, a project co-founded by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, as a key component of this plan. WorldCoin aims to create a global digital identity and financial network by scanning people's irises in exchange for cryptocurrency. Webb argues that this project is positioning itself as infrastructure for finance, universal basic income, UBI, and proof of personhood, intended to eventually encompass all of humanity. Despite WorldCoin's claims of privacy and decentralization, Webb points to the organization's track record of privacy violations and poor communication as evidence of a potential power grab for critical societal infrastructure. Webb suggests that governments and large investment firms like BlackRock are acquiring Bitcoin as part of this broader agenda. She believes that while Bitcoin is essential to the plans of many influential figures, there is still time to build tools on Bitcoin or utilize it to counteract some of their intentions. Webb warns that these developments could lead to increased surveillance and loss of financial privacy, potentially threatening Bitcoin's decentralized and pseudonymous nature. So let's listen to what Whitney Webb has to say about elections and digital IDs, as well as how and why governments and major investment firms are buying Bitcoin. But before we do that, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet.
Again, these are policies that are going to expand regardless of who's in power. Maybe you could debate about maybe it will advance slower with one party than the other, but ultimately, it's the same agenda. Yeah. And a lot of that goes back to the fact that they're bankrolled, both parties, by, differing factions, I guess, of Silicon Valley oligarchs, but those guys agree about widespread financial surveillance and, programmable money and biometric digital ID, which are sort of the foundation for a lot of the stuff in the Sustainable Development Goals, which is really, was written by bankers and isn't really about sustainable development. It's about something else. And sort of this effort for like really a technocratic global government. All of that rests on having digital ID and a surveillance, a digital wallet tied to it. And a lot of people in the Tealverse, I guess, like Sam Altman, his WorldCoin is meant to be that. It's meant to be, both a wallet and a, provider of biometric digital ID. And the United Nations, for example, has been beta testing that exact system for years on the most vulnerable people in the world, on refugees, through things like the Building Blocks program of the World Food Program, where refugees have to scan their eyeball and make a digital ID and have a digital wallet, and they can go in and get their rations, but only if they scan their eyeball. They have to pay with their face, otherwise they don't eat. They've been testing this on the most vulnerable people on the world, but it's a system that's intended for everybody, ultimately. Yeah. So I think if we want to stop this, it's not about, maybe you can vote for the party you think will implement it more slowly, right? But that's not going to defeat the policy. What will defeat the policy is people opting out. What you're seeing here is sort of what we saw over the course of the past year, was sort of Wall Street warming up to Bitcoin. And what we're seeing, it's just another extension of the establishment cozying up to Bitcoin, I guess. So I guess you could frame, Larry Fink's about face and all of that as sort of the private sector establishment turnaround, and this is sort of the public sector establishment turnaround. But as far as it relates to financial freedom, I don't think the policies expressed by, Trump, or at least what Trump expressed or hinted at in his speech, because he didn't, as far as RFKs went, he was more deliberate about what his policies specific. And Trump was a little more vague, but based on what, Trump said, talking about sort of yoking Bitcoin and the dollar together and using that to expand the dollar's power and hegemony globally, and then also bringing in stable coins, which of course would be in this case dollar denominated stable coins into the play. We have to consider what that means if the reason we're voting for it is to ensure that Bitcoin will be used to propagate financial freedom globally. So, if you're of the opinion that you want Bitcoin to be, hyper Bitcoinization to come at all costs, even if that means it not being a tool for financial freedom anymore, or it being used by intelligence agencies to surveil people, or by Wall Street to, do their thing, then maybe it's fine. But if you're of the idea that, I want Bitcoin to be empowered to end irresponsible fiscal policy at the national level and want it to ensure financial freedom for everybody, then I don't think Trump's policies necessarily spell that out, unfortunately. And part of that has to do with the whole stablecoin play. So Trump has been very openly against central bank digital currencies, but the problem with stablecoins, particularly the big ones, is that they're just as programmable and surveillable as CBDCs could be. So most people are against CBDCs because of the programmability aspect and and the surveillability aspect, being able to trace and surveil every dollar you spend. And stablecoins can offer that as well, because most of them are built, they're like ERC20 tokens right at the end of the day, and have that programmability functionality. And some stablecoin issuers that are prominent, like Circle, openly talk about the programmability aspects of their stablecoin. And they're in a very deep alliance with BlackRock, Circle particularly, and Tether itself has made an alliance with the FBI and the Secret Service, and other aspects of the U.S. government to freeze wallets at the behest of the U.S. government, thereby making Tether sort of a soft extension of U.S. foreign and fiscal policy abroad as it relates to sanctions and other things. Some of which the U.S., of course, in the past has used to facilitate regime change operations and other things, not necessarily stop terrorism, as they are inclined to say. So it's important to keep that in mind. Yeah, well, I think as far as this particular election goes, things are going to get crazier as we get closer to November. And, I think that's sort of by design to sort of try and get people, Americans, really engaged with electoral politics again, because I think most people have been really burnt out and really disillusioned with both parties. And I think you're going to continue to see both parties attempt to energize their bases by very perhaps unconventional means, or doing stuff that maybe they haven't done before. But either way, I think regardless of who wins, ultimately a lot of the same people are going to get what they want, because at the end of the day, so much of the stuff that the American people are tired of are really bipartisan agendas, right? And, regardless of who's in office, when there's a crisis, the same people tend to be called upon to solve the crisis. So, a good example of that would be the 2008 economic crisis. BlackRock was basically sent in to help handle the banker bailouts. And then during COVID, when Trump was in office, BlackRock was brought in to essentially design the COVID fiscal policy, which the ramifications of which we're still dealing with. That's just one example, but there's so much, whether it's funding wars or funding, the state of Israel, for example, with billions of U.S. tax dollars and things like that. There tends to be bipartisan consensus about a lot of things. But I think, there's an effort to sort of frame this as an election that's not that. And, each group in their particular, partisan silos, think their candidate is going to be the answer and magically.
Whitney Webb's insights reveal a complex web of interconnected issues surrounding digital IDs, Bitcoin, and global financial systems. She highlights the potential risks of centralized control and surveillance through projects like WorldCoin, while also discussing the role of Bitcoin in this evolving landscape. Webb's analysis underscores the importance of remaining vigilant about privacy, decentralization, and individual freedoms as technology continues to reshape our financial and social structures. So that was all about Whitney's prediction on the US elections, New World Order, and the global crypto market. She is very concerned and believes everyone should take care of their digital identity and should never comply to anyone. And that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future updates. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.